Okay, guys, are we back? Hello?
Hello.
Good. Are we back? Okay. Hope you had your
Sorry, sorry, Prof.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
So you're back.
Good. Yeah, go ahead with the
So,
question.
can I just say something
Yeah.
quickly? We are just informed that we need to move out of the buildings because I'm not sure you are aware that Kimberley is on strike
Okay.
and roads and entry points are being closed and so forth now.
Yeah.
I've just been informed that I must move from where I am,
Okay.
probably go home because it's a service delivery protest and I think it's getting
Okay.
much intense.
Okay.
So I will disconnect for now and
Okay.
then perhaps I'll go home. I'm hoping the colleagues are safe because we've been told that they must move out of the
Yeah.
offices. So they mustn't be caught in the crossfire.
Yeah. Now,
So I am going to connect as soon as I arrive home.
okay. And if you miss anything, well, you've got the essence of it in 3 hours. We're just going to drill down now, and then the full videos are available on the learning management system. So you're not going to lose anything.
Yes.
Okay? So yeah, to all of you out there, just be safe, please. Okay. Be safe.
Because I couldn't connect because of this protest.
Okay.
Today was the only time, but now I'm told that I have to move out of the office
Yeah.
because these people are dying.
Well,
Thank you, bro.
yeah, I'm sorry about that. Okay, just keep safe though. That's the priority. Okay. Okay, so let's just continue. For those of you that are on, and what we want to do is just drill. Well, sorry, was that a question? Hi. Do you have a question?
It's not only Mr. Prof. If Kembe are talking, it's not only Mr. Magagula. All the people in Francis Barton, Kimberley are affected by the very same community unrest. So
Okay.
we'll be now switching off.
Okay.
Then we will try to get home then.
Okay. And if we are done by then, because we kind of expect to go for another 2 hours or even less, the full video is available. If you need any further explanations, just feel free to email me, okay? Okay. Take care, be safe. Okay, so let's just continue. I just want to so we spoke about the difference between experience and satisfaction. We spoke about the relationship between experience and patient engagement, and then the positive correlation between engagement and clinical outcomes and business outcomes as well. So what we are in effect saying is that you have both a clinical case and a business case to use these tools that improve patient engagement. Okay, so these 3 tools that we're talking about is ADET, which is essentially a communication tool, rounding, which is the process of actually engaging patients and staff and families about the experience component of their interaction with the healthcare organization or system, and then finally managing up, which is that process of talking up your team and your organization as well. So let's just drill a bit more down into ADET. Next slide. Okay, so bear in mind that when we refer to, we spoke earlier on about both external customers, there's your patients, and internal customers, the staff, essentially have the same requirements. Okay? There's very little difference, and hence the kind of tools that we use, the ADET, rounding, managing up, we use both for external customers and internal customers. I think the next slide clarifies that even more. Okay? Next slide, Vic. So you can, the next, hit next again. Okay, so just fill that up. So you can see, staff actually need the same thing that customers need. The only difference is the organizational purpose that you want them aligned with. Now, we spoke a lot about purpose on lecture 1, and we continue to emphasize that throughout. The reason for your organizational being, and the ideal situation is to align the staff needs with the organizational needs. So that's a differentiating factor. Worthwhile work. So staff want to feel that they're actually making a contribution and that they're doing good. So that's a differentiator. And then, of course, they want to make a difference. So these are important differences between external customers and internal customers. Now, on the whole, you can see the requirements are pretty much the same. And that's why it's possible for us to use these tools across both internal and external customers. Staff, internal, and your patients, external. Okay, next slide. Okay, I kind of spoke about this, that first impressions matter. So, rightly or wrongly, it's just the way it is. Make a concerted attempt to create a positive first impression. Even before you engage with somebody verbally, try and create a good impression. So kind of, visuals matter. So, because people make an opinion about you as soon as they meet you. And if that is negative from the outset, it's extremely difficult to kind of reverse that moving forward. So first impressions matter, and a couple of things which you can do to improve that. Vic? Okay, visual appearances. So these are just a couple of things that you can do. Make eye contact. Be in control of your facial expressions, because before you have any verbal interaction, a smile, a nod, a positive facial expression, do not roll your eyes or sigh, because patients pick this up and immediately you create a negative impression. Okay, so acknowledge people when they talk, nod when you're listening, look like you are listening. So patients will know, because this is something we test in experience as well, is, when you spoke to the provider, the nurse or the doctor, did they listen to you? Do you get the impression? Wear proper uniform and a visible name tag. That's very, very important. I mean, if we're on the other side of it and trying to, when you mention your name in the introduction part of ADET, sometimes the name doesn't always stick. Bear in mind the patients are anxious, they're nervous, they're in a healthcare context. And very often when you introduce yourself, they may or may not get your name. And it doesn't help if your name tag is covered. So make sure your name tags have your name in big bold print, that your hair is not covering it or it's not flipped around. Because it's these small things that make a big impression, okay? Put your phone off when you're engaging with the patient or with staff. Switch it off, put it away. It's becoming a kind of modern day major distraction. So, I'm not sure whether you guys have cell phone policies at work, but the policy should be very simple. It should be switched off unless it's used to communicate at work for work-related purposes. You shouldn't be taking private calls and messaging and on social media, etc. It's very distracting, but it leaves a very negative taste in patients. So please abide by those policies. And if you don't have a policy in place, one of the things you need to do is put that policy in place. So there's no cell phone usage, especially when you're at that patient interface. So extremely important, because first impressions matter. Okay, next. Send the right message. Remember, choice of words matter. So if you look at telephonic and face-to-face, you can see, just click the slide again, it will give you the percentages, and you can see that it's just not the content of your speech. Okay, there's a lot of value placed on the tone that you use. Okay, so it's just not the words, it's how you speak. So you can see telephonically pretty obviously 86% believe, you know, what is said based on the tone, and face-to-face 38%, a pretty high proportion. 55% is, you know, with regards to communication, is about what they see. You know, so it's important, that impression, the look, the nod, the acknowledgement, the smile, the fact that you actually look like you're listening and engaged. It really, really matters. And, you know, if you have to, I mean, a lot of these kind of communication lessons are available on YouTube. There are lots of short videos. But if you have to bring in, if you're a hospital CEO, manager, I think a worthwhile investment would be bringing in a communication expert to help your staff understand the importance of communication and then the nuances of verbal, vocal, and visual cues. It's extremely important. And as you can see, patients place a lot of importance on them. So it's a worthwhile investment. I mean, remember, you're ultimately, by doing this, investing in the outcomes of the patient, and you're also making a good business case to do that as well. Always remember that relationship between a positive patient experience and clinical and business outcomes, okay? So this is an important slide. Go, next slide. Okay, so we covered what ADET is. I mean, it's the framework and some of the key positive aspects of using it. It improves patient engagement, so that's, you know, kind of compliance, decreases anxiety, because it's a structured way of communicating. And it engenders, as I said, it engenders a lot of confidence in patients as well. Okay, good, next. Okay, so once we've covered all of this, but I think I have them in the slides. You have the slide deck. But we essentially, you know, we have covered all of this. It reduces anxiety, establishes trust, ultimately improves clinical outcomes by patients becoming more engaged. You know, the ADET, the plus part of it, as I said, you know, helps build loyalty. If you promise excellence, you build loyalty. And patients come back to you. You know, might not be something you're encouraging now in the public sector, but when the NHI kicks in and you get reimbursed for your services, you know, that's something you might want to consider, okay? More importantly than loyalty and return is compliance, especially in the public sector, because the more compliant they are, then they actually save the public sector money in the long run. So I'll prioritize that to loyalty, especially in the public sector, because your revenue doesn't depend on that. Under NHI, that will change though. Okay, next slide. Similarly for co-workers, so that's the patient part of ADET, and then the co-worker part. And as you can see, because their needs are pretty similar, it's almost the same kind of positive outlook and reasoning and rationale why ADET would work there. Okay, so reduces anxiety, builds trust. You know, employees, colleagues want to know whether they can actually count on you. It improves teamwork. Okay, because they kind of cooperate more. And it builds a nice kind of camaraderie, lays the basis for communication, and I think overall, you know, benefits the functioning of the organization. So lots of powerful benefits from using ADET for staff as well. And using ADET for staff means the way you communicate with your colleagues. Okay. Now, you know, you don't have to go through the full. You can have an abridged version for them. But it gives you a structured way to communicate with coworkers. So you can write a script for somebody you meet for the first time in your workplace, and then of course for people who you work with regularly. has to comprise these 4 things. As I said, you can abridge them, you can adjust the order a bit, but ADET has to have, when you communicate, you have to have these 5 components to it. It's standardization of communication, basically. Okay, next. Well, by now, that's pretty self-explanatory. You know what ADET is. So the A and I, courtesy and respect to others, and the D and E, keeping people informed, and that's kind of the key output of ADET. Thank you is pretty self-explanatory. Remember, you can add the plus part. It's making a promise of excellence that goes with this. So, you know, you can call that ADET plus P, the promise. Make a promise of excellence and build that in. Okay, next. Okay. So once again, I mean, as I said, you know, it's important that you use this in every interaction with the customer or the patient in your case. We just spoke about the order. Doesn't have to be AID, but obviously it's logical. You begin with an acknowledgement and you end with a thank you, and you kind of, you know, can be a bit flexible with what's in between them. So, but all those components have to be there. Okay. Critical take-home point is it's used with every single interaction with patients. Okay, even with repeat patients. You've got to go through, because every visit may not be the same. So although you may abridge it, but these 5 components have to be there. Okay? Important. Next. Okay, so that's the 10-5 rule that I spoke to you about earlier on. So once you can see, I mean, this is just a drill down. If you want to recap on ADET, you pull up this slide deck, and it gives you a drill down. We spoke about the 10-5 rule. It's not just when you're walking down the hall, but whenever you encounter somebody at 10 feet, eye contact, smile, nod. You want to kind of emit this appearance of positivity. 5 feet away, that's when you start delivering the verbal part of ADET. So pretty easy to remember. 10 feet, just above 3 meters. 5 feet is half that. And then practice that kind of distance. You know, just measure it out so you have a sense of that of what 10 feet looks like, what 5 feet looks like, or just above 3 and just above 1.5 respectively. Okay, so pretty simplistic. Remember, just over 3 meters, eye contact, smile, nod, positive visual appearance. 5 feet, the verbal part of ADET begins. Okay, so 1.5 meters is pretty close. Okay, next. Okay, so these are samples. You know, hello, I'm Cindy, one of the employees. You look at little lost, can I help you find something? That's for an external person. Internal person, hi, I'm Cindy from accounting. You look upset, can I help you with something? Just some kind of examples of abridged ADETs for patients and for staff. Okay. Self-explanatory, nothing much to talk about. Okay, next. Okay, so tone, extremely important. Remember, people place more value on the tone as opposed to the actual content. So make sure that you focus on that, okay? Remember, always smile. The visual part, first impressions matter, and you know, it's going to determine whether, the impression that somebody has of you moving forward. Now, you may disagree, you may agree with that, but it's just the blatant truth. That's the way it is. First impressions count, so strive to make a first positive impression. Pitch, you know, avoid this monotonic kind of approach to talking. So even if I am delivering a lecture and I'm doing it in a monotone, I'll lose you very quickly. So you have to kind of, you know, emphasize, de-emphasize, speak at different volumes based on what you want to emphasize and de-emphasize, etc. And kind of look like you're engaged and interested and empathetic. All of this is important. So tone matters. The way you talk to patients, don't look disinterested. Even if it's kind of the latter part of the day and you're exhausted, really no excuse. Okay, this is just basic communication 101. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is some examples of how you may greet somebody in person. You know, good morning, how may I help you? As you can see, visible name badge at shoulder level plays an important and active part of the introduction because people don't get the name. I very often, when somebody introduces me, will not remember the name within a few seconds, and I'm kind of always looking for the badge. So having the badge here at shoulder height, meaning this is where the badge should be, it should be visible and not covered as well. Okay, and there's another example of a more prolonged conversation. So what I want you to do as a kind of exercise is write out the standardized ADETs, abridged, full, for internal, for staff and co-workers, and one for patients as well. Now, you may want to write one for patients that you see for the first time. You may write one for patients that you know pretty well. But remember, you always use ADET. You always have these 5 components, but you can kind of abridge them and change the order a bit if you have to. Okay, next. Okay, this is kind of scripts for answering the phone. Now, it's important. It's important really if you're a hospital CEO, you manage units, etc., and you have secretarial staff and you're reading and you're receiving a lot of calls to make appointments or patients following up, etc. You've got to standardize this. You have to provide scripts to people who are answering the phone. And the good thing with that is you can actually, you know, place it somewhere very accessible where people answer phones, so they can read from it. But it's something very simple, but I've never seen that in South African hospitals, where there's actually a script in terms of how a phone call should be managed, in terms of the response, the questions you should ask, and the actual verbiage. And this has to be standardized. You know, you pick up the phone and you call any major corporate, and you immediately get a sense that the person answering is pretty scripted. Because every time you call, they ask you exactly the sequence is pretty much the same, and what they say and what they ask is pretty much the same. Okay, we've given you some examples here. You can use this, but the point is you have to standardize communication. We're at the moment very haphazard in the way we communicate in hospitals. Okay, Vic, next slide. Okay, so just some keywords. Now you can see, certainly I'll be happy to, it's my pleasure, thank you, may I help you, here's what I can do to get you what you need. Okay, so this is researched. When we ask customers and patients the kind of terminology that elicits a positive experience in them, this is the kind of thing, and these are the actual words. So you now have them, and you can use this kind of vocabulary to build into your script to answer a phone call, or actually to even communicate with somebody. So you know, and as I said, as simple and obvious as it is, this is not done, and communication is pretty haphazard and informal. Okay, we need to change that. Okay, next. Okay, so these are things you never do. Okay, so ADET, rounding and all, managing up are things you should do. We showed you how to do it. We've given you actual examples, something you can implement immediately. Never say to somebody you do not know. Okay? It is never an acceptable answer. You can connect them with somebody who has the answer. And actually never abandon the patient until that connection is made. So if you're referring the patient on because you don't have an answer, take the patient with you. Walk the patient there. Make sure that the patient has access to you to check and double check. So important. I don't know is never the right thing to say. Always find somebody to assist the patient. Do not abandon the patient and until that connection is made. So if you are referring them on to somebody, make sure you take them or make sure they're accompanied by somebody to that connection. So never, and we're infamous for this in healthcare. You know, we send patients from pillar to post, you know, x-rays to labs, to pharmacies and back. And inevitably patients get lost. Okay, it's pretty chaotic. That should never happen. So, and it's just common courtesy, you know. Take patients to where you want them to go, especially if you're referring them, and especially if you don't have the answer for them. Okay, don't take feedback personally. Feedback is always useful. And I think you should be grateful for feedback, both positive and negative, because the feedback is in the opportunity to continue doing something the way you're doing it because it's positive, or to change what you're doing so that you improve the patient's experience. So don't get pissed off with patients either way, because it's really a rare opportunity to improve something. Okay, so remember, never say I don't know, never abandon patients, and don't take feedback personally. Take it as an opportunity. Okay, good, next slide. Okay, so I just want to show you a video and then we can discuss that briefly. Okay.
I was asked 5 years ago to speak to 3,000 employees.
Please let us know if you can see that.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Share to him. Make sure I can show it to you as well.
Of a large grocery store chain. And they brought everybody. After
Just
I
start
spoke,
that,
I always give my home phone number to every audience. I was asked 5 years ago to speak to 3,000 employees of a large grocery store chain. And they brought everybody. After I'd spoken, I always give my home phone number to every audience. I had a young man who called me, and he told me his name was Johnny, that he was a bagger in one of the stores, and he was a person of Down syndrome. He said, Barbara, I liked what you said. And he said he went home that night and he asked his dad to help him with the computer. And he said we set the computer up into 3 columns. And he said from that night on, every night that he goes home, he finds a thought for the day. And he said, if I can't find what I like, I'll think one up. Then he and his dad type it 6 times on a page. He prints out 50 pages every single night, cuts them out, signs his name on the back, and the next day, for every person's groceries he bags, he puts a thought for the day in the bag. Now, about a month later, the store manager called me. He said, Barbara, I want to tell you what Johnny's checkout was 3 times longer than any other line. He said, I went people out there, get more lanes open. And he said, the customer said, no, we want to be in Johnny's lane. We want a thought for the day. So who do you think is the most important person in that whole story? He said, one woman came up and said, I only used to shop once a week, but now I come in every time I go by because I want the thought for the day. He said 3 months later, the store manager called me back again, and he said, Barbara, you and Johnny have transformed our store. He said, now in the floral department, when they have a broken off flower or an unused corsage, we used to just throw them away. He said, now they go out on the floor and they find an elderly woman or little girl, and they pin it on. He said, one of our meat packers loves Snoopy, so we ordered 50,000 Snoopy stickers. And every time he packages a piece of meat, his meat gets a Snoopy sticker on it. Now I said, I don't know about dog stickers on meat. But he said, we are having so much fun, and our customers are having so much fun. And folks, that's a true leader. And if he can do it, there is no reason why every one of us in this room and out there in our audiences can't do it. Thank you. God bless.
Okay, guys. Okay, any comments about what we just saw? Any comments about that short video? Are you with me? Did you guys watch that? Any comments about what you just saw? I can't hear anybody. Anybody has a response? Any response to what you just saw? Well, okay, so if you didn't, well, I hope you watched it, but the point of that video is that irrespective of who you are in the organization and the role that you play, you can have a positive and transformative effect, in this case, on the customer experience, and in respect of what we're talking about with patient experience as well. This is a simple example how a thought of the day, is appreciated by customers, leads to customer retention. It actually probably leads to extra sales. And in that story, that's kind of the impression you get. A simple activity aimed at creating a positive experience leads to more engaged customers, so they're more loyal, they come back, okay? And not only that, it also drives revenue as well. So once again, a business case and a patient experience, a customer experience case with activities as simple as a thought of the day. So pretty powerful, short video. And remember, I think emphasizing the point that everybody in the organization has a critical role to play and can positively improve the patient experience or the customer experience, as in the case of Johnny the bagger. A simple bagger that you see at all of these grocery stores today can have a tremendous impact on customer experience, customer loyalty, and revenue as well. Okay, next slide. So I've introduced this concept of which one?
This one that you're looking at.
Yeah. So this was the exercise that I wanted you to do. So I would generally give you some time to do this, but I think it's pretty simplistic. In fact, you should probably have been kind of giving it a shot as soon as we introduced the concept of ADET to you. But what I want you to do in the course of today, tomorrow, is script out the ADET for patients, script out the ADET for your colleagues, co-workers, so because you're going to do both, and then do a full version and an abridged version of each one and share it with your colleagues. And I think in the process of sharing, you know, all of your ADETs would improve. And that's the key thing. So, you know, get some advice, get some input from others. You're all in groups. Hopefully you're still functioning as groups. But share it. Share it with colleagues, share it with friends, and kind of revisit it until you're satisfied that it has all the components. So we have given you the structure. I've given you keyword choices. So it should be pretty simplistic. So you're going to have 4. 1 ADET for patients, 1 ADET for staff, for colleagues, a full version and an abridged version of each. Okay, so that's your exercise. I'm not going to ask you to submit anything. You're actually lucky that there is no assignment after this because it's a short module and I think pretty simplistic. All I want you to do is develop your ADET scripts and your scripts for rounding as well. Okay, so that's an exercise. I introduced the concept of managing up to you. And essentially what I said managing up is engendering confidence amongst your staff and patients. Okay, so always speak them up. That they're great and they're the best and they're experienced and you're actually in the right place for what you need. Okay, so that's the concept of managing up. You know, defragmented, it's positive things about self. So you manage yourself up in ADET when you introduce yourself. You saw those examples. You know, I'm Sarah. These are my qualifications, this is my experience, and my colleagues think I'm really good at what I do. Now that's not showing off or boasting, or that is managing up purely to instill confidence within the patient. You know, that's of you and your organization. Positive things about others, so manage yourself up and manage your team up. Now this is a critical function that leaders should play. Okay, you always manage your team and your organization up. Speak highly of them, speak well of them, complimentary, and build it into your ADET. I mean, because this is that promise of excellence that I was talking about, the ADET plus. Okay, good. So this is what managing up means. Simple term. And embed it in your communications in ADET because it's a critical tool. So tool 1 ADET, tool 2 managing up. Okay. So when you review your scripts for ADET and you review your scripts for rounding, make sure that you've taken the opportunity to manage yourself up. Make sure that you've taken the opportunity to manage your team and your organization up. Okay, simple yet powerful too. Okay, next. Okay, so does any of you have any questions on ADET and managing up? Any questions? So very simple, you have a short assignment to write those ADET scripts. Make sure you put the ADET plus, the promise of excellence. Make sure you take the opportunity to manage yourself up and to manage your staff up. Okay? So you have the 2 tools, and the third one is rounding, and we'll end with rounding. So as I promised, it's a very short and sweet module, but it's compacted with high value, actionable information. These 3 things is something that you can start using now and today and actually start making a difference. Okay, so please write those scripts, please use it. And we're going to end up with rounding. So if we can just pull up the slide deck on rounding. And once again, while Vic is busy pulling up the slide deck, let me kind of emphasize and re-emphasize that the concept is derived from the ward rounds that we do. So it's essentially ward rounds are aimed at aiding from the diagnostic and treatment point of view. Rounding for patient experience is you're around patients, you're around colleagues, and you're around families. And the whole idea is to understand what their expectations are as far as, you know, what they require from us non-medically, and, you know, what can you do to improve their stay, and try and solicit input into how you can improve the quality of their experience that they're having with you. From a staff point of view, from a patient point of view, and from the family point of view, it's pretty much the same thing. And once again, as I said, you know, it is not a casual exercise. It is a formalized approach. So you have to kind of embed this as a leader or manager into your day's activities. So rounding has to be something that you're now going to include in your calendar. You're going to spend an X amount of time rounding with patients, you're going to spend an X amount of time rounding with staff, and an X amount of time rounding with families as well. Okay, next slide. So this is kind of what's the purpose, to demonstrate basically that, well, firstly, it gives the leaders the opportunity to connect with patient, staff, and family, find out what's happening, what's going well, what's going badly, how can we improve in terms of their stay. You also want to communicate that you care and value them. So it's across the board. Staff, you care and value them. Patients, you care and value them. And families, you care and value them. From a staff point of view, you want to recognize that you know, if they're doing a great job. This is your opportunity in that one-on-one interaction, you know, to pat them on the back and compliment them for jobs well done. On the other hand, you know, if you're rounding on somebody who has reports, so meaning that people are reporting to them, subordinates, always check with them if, you know, is there anybody in their team that you as a leader need to recognize? So as somebody in your, do you think that there's somebody, or can you name somebody in your team who you think I as the leader or the CEO or the head of the unit should recognize? And I think that's an important, because once you get that person's name and what you want to recognize them for, you know, it's pretty powerful to write them a little just note of appreciation. You know, that little handwritten personal note of appreciation, it could be tremendously powerful. And I'll give you some tips at the end of this on how to write that note. But remember, rounding is a powerful, powerful tool, because it gives you a lot of information on which you can act. It gives us this ability to kind of practice what I call personalized management and leadership. So you can actually customize your intervention to individuals, because you're getting that level of information, okay, from individuals, especially, you know, with fellow staff and with patients as well. And as I said, you know, one of the things we never do is ask patients what are their expectations from that visit or from that hospital stay. What to them would be a high value experience at the end of all of this. And like doctors write instructions on those little boards at the bedside, you can do exactly the same from the patient point of view. The patient, you know, has following expectations, A, B, C, D, E, and check them off or scratch them off as you meet those. So the patients can actually see that, firstly, you've listened, you've noted, and most importantly, you've actually taken heed and changed that. Okay, so you can do that. Remember, the clinical care part of it is one component. The bigger, arguably bigger component is that experience. Okay, so if we do things for clinical purposes, then we can do things to improve the patient experience, because both of these things contribute to outcome as well. Okay, so we're kind of re-emphasizing stuff that we spoke about this morning as well. Go ahead, Vic, next slide. Okay, so why round? Well, because employees want a leader who cares about them and values them. This comes out during the rounding. They want systems that work and tools and equipment to do the job, because one of the things you do in rounding is inquire, what can I do for you to ensure that you succeed? You know, we've talked about, it's not people. People don't come to work to err or to harm, but sometimes the system conspires to allow them to make these errors. And one of the things that we do in rounding is to try and ascertain from employees, what is it that's missing? What is it that I can do to enable you to better do your job, okay? They want opportunities for professional development, so that's something that can come up. It's something they may raise. It's something that you may raise. They want to be recognized and rewarded. This is that opportunity. If you are aware of something that they have achieved, some metrics that have been attained, that you can congratulate them for that. And doing that personally really counts, instead of kind of making generic announcements at monthly meetings or something. Okay? Remember, they also don't want to work with low performers. So rounding is the opportunity to actually get everybody up to par, if you understand exactly who the high performers are and the low performers as well. Okay, so next slide. Essentially, who should I round on? Basically, these are all your direct reports. If you're a leader or manager, you have people reporting to you. Those are the individuals that you will round on. Remember, you have to round on everybody that reports to you. That's absolutely critical. So you can kind of, I think I have the next slide, which gives you but essentially what you have to do is round on them at least once a month. So figure it out in your calendar, okay? So, you have 20 working days. If you have 40 people and you go to round on them once a month, that's 2 per day, okay? So it's 20 minutes a day for your staff at least. It's a small investment for the potential reward and return that you'll actually get from that. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is just how you can do it if you have fewer than 40 employees. Round with each employee monthly. So 40 employees, 20 working days, roughly is 2 per day. Okay, if you have 41 to 80, round with each employee every other month. So you kind of, but it breaks down to 2 a day, 40 a month. If you have more than 80, you'll round on each employee quarterly or every 90 days. So essentially, the rule of thumb is 2 employees a day. Okay, and 10 minutes per rounding session, it's 20 minutes a day. It's the best 20 minutes I think you could spend from a staff experience point of view. I think it's the best 20 minutes you'll spend from a patient experience point of view. So start developing your calendars by factoring these into them, okay? Small effort. Next slide. Okay, so this is a kind of guide. Remember, I said at the outset that it is not a casual, haphazard exercise. It is very, very formalized, okay? So you have to write these questions down and you have to actually record your responses. And you're going to ask everybody the same question. So it doesn't change because it's difficult to draw conclusions if everybody you round on gets asked a different question. So, I said to you, one of the things I want you to do is write your scripts for ADET, but also prepare your questions for rounding, okay? Now, rounding is always preceded with ADET. If you're rounding on patients, you start with ADET. If you're rounding on staff, you start with ADET. If you're rounding on families, you start with ADET. And then from a staff point of view, you ask them, well, what's working well? You know, is there somebody in their team that you need to recognize and why? Because that's powerful. Remember, people want to be recognized and they want to be rewarded. It's kind of human nature. This is that opportunity to learn about what's happening within your organization. It's also, you know, an opportunity to learn about who are the high performers. And it's important for you to focus on high performers. Focus on them, meaning that you want to engage them and inquire from them, what is it that they do that makes them high performers, that makes them winners? Because it's those kind of lessons that you want to filter down throughout your organization. If somebody is doing something really well, as a leader, you have a responsibility to kind of figure out what makes this person a high performer, what makes them a winner, and whether there's some, you know, skills, some kind of attitude, some kind of competence that you can, you know, leverage and spread out through the organization. So you kind of lift everybody as some individuals rise. That's the kind of whole principle. Okay, so is there somebody that you need to recognize? Do you have the tools, equipment, and information to do your job? We discussed that. It's one of the main reasons why you would round. What can we do to make you better at your job? Okay. Are there any systems or processes you'd like to see improved? Do you have any idea on how to fix them? Is there anything I can help you with right now? Short, sweet, 10 minutes. This is kind of, you know, preceded, of course, by ADET. You know, ADET, and then you go into this, and you can see the overall theme of this is, what can I do to make you function well? Okay, that's for staff. For patients, it's pretty much the similar. What can we do to make you have this positive experience? That's the essence of rounding. You know, what are the things that we can do? Okay, next slide. Pretty kind of self-explanatory, simplistic, yet extremely powerful. And as I said, it's something you can start implementing tomorrow. Okay, tips. You know, as I said, it's not there to blame and to find faults. It's there really to find opportunities to do things better. That's kind of, you know, that's the way you have to see rounding. It's not about blaming, not about shaming, not about finding faults, but finding the opportunities to improve so that person can function better, and then so that the organization can find that. You got to do this regularly, and we said, I mean, you can obviously do it more regularly if you have a lower number of staff, but the rule is 2 per day is fine, at least once a month if you've got less than 40. I mean, if you've got 10 people, you know, you can round on them every week, because the more real-time information you get, the better for you. The more experienced with the rounding you become, the more efficient you become. So you may cut down that 10 minutes to 5 minutes. But this should never be a casual exercise. It's always a formalized exercise. So make the appointment with the staff member, colleague, or patient, and then pitch up when you should. Okay? Always go to the person. You know, you don't round by asking the person to come to your office. So you go and meet the staff member. I mean, in most cases, or in all cases, there'll probably be a subordinate, but you arrange to meet them where they are located. Round regularly, take your time, talk to all staff, ask open-ended questions. We've given you a list of the questions. Be genuine and look genuine. Take notes, it's important. So I said it's standardized. So print out the sheet with all the questions and document their answers. Remember, if you're rounding on 2 people a day, you're doing this every day, you're bound to forget what each person reported. So make diligent notes. So you can actually respond. The biggest disservice that you can do to your staff is round, get input in terms of what you can do and not do it, or not provide them feedback in terms of why you can't do that. Okay, so that's the biggest service. So write the notes, make sure you diarize that, make sure that you build into your diary that you need to respond to person X by a certain day, or keep them updated. Now, being in the public sector and the issues that you face with resource constraints, etc., you can't always, successfully address people's wants and needs. But as I said, at least you can keep them updated and provide feedback and provide them with the assurance that you're actually trying to make resources available to them, or equipment that they may need, or whatever it is, okay? Be genuine, take notes, act on what you learn. Kind of something what we just covered. Say thank you, say it often. Focus on the winners. It's in the context of what I explained to you. It's to understand what makes them winners, what makes them successful, okay? So that we can filter that down to the rest of the organization as well. Share lessons learned, that's kind of what we did, and then always follow up. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory, but these are powerful tips to kind of design and guide your whole rounding initiative around. Okay. Anybody has any questions? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, as I said, another undervalued tool is writing personalized notes. Okay, pretty powerful tool, was used very often in the old days, and I think we need to bring them back. So always write little notes to thank people that work with you, colleagues and staff, and especially, notes of encouragement, notes of recognition for a job well done. This is critically important. Okay, so little guideline on how you can do this, because I think we should start that again. Okay, especially if you're a leader. Start writing these thank you notes. Make sure it's personalized to the recipient. So, you have to address it directly to Ruben or to Vic or to whoever it is. Be explicit and specific as to what you're thankful for. So list exactly why you're thanking them. Whether they were reduced waiting time in the outpatients, or, because patients have congratulated, spoken highly of their particular service. So be very specific. Dear Vic, it has come to my attention that you superseded expectations in terms of whatever it is. Expressed genuine, and we're really grateful to the impact you've had in your unit and in our hospital in general. And thank you, we're really glad to have you part of that. It's short, concise, very specific, and in an encouraging note, because you want that person to continue that behavior. So a couple of, just 5 kind of key points that may actually aid you in writing a thank you note, okay? In a way, simplistic, but what I'm trying to do is give you tools, but standardize those things. So I'm giving you standardized approaches to do everything. Standardized approaches to ADET and for communication and ADET, standardized approach to rounding, standardized approach to managing up, standardized ways of writing a thank you note. All simplistic stuff, no rocket science, purely qualitative. But I'm going to go back to what I started with. Healthcare is a relationship business. We need relationship-based interventions over and above the clinical and scientific interventions. And these are 3 or 4 powerful tools that actually build on that relationship part of it. Okay, do we have any more slides, Vic? That's it. Does anybody have any questions about what we've covered today? Any questions? So that kind of is it. Pretty short, pretty sweet. Not rocket science, as I said, but pretty powerful. Okay? Any questions? All of these slides will be available. The readings are already available. You'll find the readings pretty interesting and useful as well. Any questions before I let you go?
Prof, my hand is up here.
Hi. You have a question?
I just wanted actually to comment, not to have a question.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's good that there's a standardized process, because usually we focus on the ones that goes the extra mile to say thank you, and the ones that's underperforming. And
Yeah.
we tend to forget the middle part.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, this is across the board, by the way. Everybody has to do it. It's something, as I said, you can go back and implement. And, you know, you can require people. So I would, you know, not everybody is fortunate enough to attend class like you. So if you're going back to your organization, share the notes, get everybody into a boardroom. You can, you know, this took basically, I think, 4 or 5 hours to cover this. If you take each chunk, ADET, rounding, managing up, you know, you can do these in short breaks. And spread the message, get people to start writing their ADETs and sharing it. You know, it's easy to do. Provide them that standardized template. You know, this is the whole point. As I said, you know, the way people communicate with you in McDonald's, in every part of the country, in fact, every part of the world, is exactly the same. Okay, so we need to do that in healthcare. For some reason, we're not even made aware of it, because we could not correlate the importance of doing that to outcomes and to, you know, having a good business case. But now we have the data, so it makes perfect sense for us to do that. Okay? Any other comments or questions? Yes. Go ahead. I see a...
The same question.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other questions?
Hello, Prof.
Hi.
It's Gloria here.
Hi, Gloria.
Yes. For me, it's about access to the learning materials.
Yeah.
We were given the link and credentials to access from
Right.
the from Department of Health, but
Yeah.
I've tried ever since I'm failing. I don't know if there's something that I'm not doing right.
You can't access the learning, the management site? It's a universal,
Yes.
we gave you a universal username and password. So,
Yes.
has everybody had a problem, or is it just Gloria? Who else has tried to access it but has had difficulty?
I managed to access it, and I did not have any problem.
Okay, so Blandine, can you do me a favor on the chat? Just share the username and password. And I think no, I don't think it's all case sensitive. So Gloria, it's case sensitive. Just make sure, because if one is accessing it, everybody should be able to. It should be working. But if you cannot, email me, please. So my email address is rpillay. Vic will put this in the chat room. It's rpillay@uab.edu. So we have somebody who's managing the website, the learning management system, and I can always just connect you with him. Okay, if you're having any technical issues with regards to the learning management system, because we're going to post the slides there as well. So it's important that you be able to access it. Yeah?
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? We're done early, so there's stuff that we can discuss. If you want to discuss anything else, any other modules that we've done, I think this would be the time to do it. Well, and if you don't, you know, I hope you found the program useful. I hope you found the course useful. As I said, all of the lectures are available. So for now, you can always go back to module 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and revisit at your leisure. But in the next couple of months, we'll have bite-sized chunks available, 10 minutes and titled, so you can go specifically, you know, to understand specific things. The HQS 360 framework, understanding purpose, understanding costing, measurement, presentation of data, those kinds of things. So you can just click on exactly what you want to watch. So it's almost a kind of ongoing CPD for you, okay? And we will also start discussing local cases. It seems there's no shortage, based on press reports, there's no shortage of quality and safety related cases. So that's the whole idea. You may also receive communication from your respective provinces. Each of your provinces is going to set up what's called a QLC, a Quality Learning Center. The provinces are going to be required to submit your details centrally, and you will be approached to assist with the setup and the operations of these quality learning centers. And essentially, as I said, it's the content that we have covered in these 5 modules. Okay, so don't be surprised.
Someone asked access to the LMS.
So I don't have it with me now, but do you have the access details for Viv? Yes. So Blandine, if you have the
Is it typing it?
yeah, okay, thank you. Blandine is going to put that in the chat. Remember, it's case sensitive. Thank you, Blandine. And you'll be able to access all the videos, all the content. Remember, you have a textbook. Everything that we have discussed is in the textbook. There's a lot of examples. You have a workbook that has a lot of examples for you to work through. And, you know, you feel free to use that content in your quality learning center as well. I think what's going to happen is that they're going to embrace our whole approach nationally. So, you know, it's a pretty good thing, I think. Yes, Blandine is...
Please put this up.
Yeah, okay. So Blandine has posted that, the link, the username and password. And thank you so much, Blandine. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, if you have no more questions, then I guess that brings to an end your program on healthcare quality and patient safety. I hope you found that useful, and we're counting on you to become advocates for quality and patient safety in your respective provinces. And hopefully in about a year from now, we'll see you for a brief 2-day CPD where we will kind of review everything that you have done, plus update you on any newer trends in the space of quality and patient safety. Okay, so with that, thank you, take care, and good luck with all the knowledge that you have acquired. Okay? Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.